Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.
From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
You know what I think? I think you forgot to lock your door. A lot of people do that. They forget. It's too bad because all crime needs is a chance. Don't give it the chance. It's my job to teach you to protect yourselves. Make it your job to learn. Write the box 6600 Rockville, Maryland. Oh, and one more thing. Lock your door and take a bite out of crime.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, National Crime Prevention Month. Joining us to talk more about it are three individuals with the Omaha Police Department, Lieutenant Charles Ott and Officers Sonia Elkins and Jenny Nelson. The three have a combined total of more than 60 years of experience in law enforcement. Thank you all so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you for having us here.
Lieutenant, hard to believe that McGruff, the crime dog, is about to turn 40, right? Thank you, yes. And to start though, let's go back to the 80s. Talk about what law enforcement was most concerned about then.
Well, if you look back at the crime statistics available from the FBI, the Uniform Crime Report data, starting in the 60s, you had a general and distinct increase on violent crime indexes, be it homicide, manslaughter, robberies, and it continued to go up through the 70s, and I believe it was 1979 was the year that McGruff was introduced. That was kind of the big thing, was the dramatic increase in the violent crime indexes. Luckily, just as it increased from about 1960 through the 80s, the last 20 years or so, we've seen a general decrease in those violent crime indexes for the most part, in just about all of them. That's nationwide, not just here locally.
Okay, great. And Officer Elkins, talk to us about the organization that was actually behind getting the whole campaign going.
Well, the organization was the National Crime Prevention Council, and they wanted to come up with something that would also be geared towards children too, on how to be safe. And so that's when they organized this National Crime Prevention Council, is to fight crime, to reduce crime, and that's when the McGruff dog, he's a bloodhound, was started, is so that kids can also see the dog as, be safe and how to be safe, going to school, coming home from school and all that.
So where is McGruff, other than right here on our set with us? Where are we with that campaign today?
Well, unfortunately, in 2012, McGruff, we had our McGruff houses, and they couldn't keep up with, they didn't have the money in the fund to keep organizing the McGruff houses. So in 2012, that's when McGruff was ended, and that was, we had to collect all the signs from all the houses, and so in 2012, McGruff was no longer anymore, but we still use our McGruff as our mascot for kids to see and to know, that he's there for safe. You have to be safe. So we still utilize our mascot.
Even retired wanting to take a bite out of crime, huh, McGruff? So we're going to go have you look for ways to do that while we continue with this interview. How does that sound? All right, thank you, and thanks for being here. All right. So, Officer Nelson, we have, gosh, as time has gone on, we've become more sophisticated, right, in terms of that whole crime. Today, though, and there's so much we could talk about, today we thought we'd go with identity theft, fraud, and scams. Let's start by having you give us your definition of identity theft.
First and foremost, it's a serious crime. It happens quite frequently, and I know Officer Elkins has the stats on that, but it's a crime that affects your personal identification. So that could be your social security number, your date of birth, your financial information. So if someone is to obtain that information and use it illegally or use it fraudulently, then that opens yourself up to identity theft. So it's quite a frequent problem. It's something that we could probably never get rid of. No one is immune to it, but there are steps that we'll talk about later on how to decrease your chances of becoming a victim of identity theft.
Right, and before we do that, let's walk through the ways that people get away with this. I think you gave us 12, so we're going to put
Yes.
that up for our viewers. And while we're taking a look at that list, talk about big picture, what's most important for viewers to know here?
For instance, the theft of purses, that one is probably our most prominent way that people are gaining that financial information, whether that be someone leaving a purse in a grocery cart at a grocery store, or perhaps going to the gym and leaving their purse in their vehicle. Also, we see a lot of purse thefts from restaurants. We go into a restaurant, we leave our purse dangled over the back of a chair, and it takes seconds for someone to reach down and to grab a wallet out of a purse. Sadly, even at a grocery store, the reality is if you leave a purse in your grocery cart, someone walks by, digs in, grabs that wallet, and you're not even aware your wallet's missing until you're at the cash register ready to pay for your product and you don't know where that is. And in that 10 minutes time, someone has actually left the store and used that credit card at a place to charge your credit card. So it happens quickly. The same with purse thefts at a gym or a recreational park, because obviously you're not going to take those in with you. But that is one of the common ways that we are seeing that fraudulent information, or that information being stolen and used fraudulently. Another way is through home burglaries. So it's important that if you have checkbooks that aren't being used or credit card statements, it's important for you to lock those pieces of documents up, because in a burglary, obviously people are in your home, they have time to look for those items. So we want to make it difficult for them to be able to find those items. Another way, and this is not by any fault of our own, are data breaches. It happens quite frequently. You hear about it all the time, how a company, your information was stolen. You can't do anything about that, obviously, but there are ways to protect yourself in the future from that happening again. And there are several other ways that your identity is stolen, but the main ones that I think are important to remember are the purse thefts, the wallet thefts, home burglaries. I know a lot of times people are going to gas stations and they're paying for gas at the pumps. And we see a lot of that information, we call it skimming, where someone is using your credit card information. When you insert a credit card into a skimming machine, they're implanting devices that record that credit card information. So there are ways to, when you go to a gas station, to make sure that that gas pump is secured. You could either make sure that the machine doesn't look compromised, like someone has broken into it. A lot of times gas stations are putting tape, like a secured piece of tape over the key hole in the door to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. We also recommend just playing with the card reader. So grab it, feel it. If it moves, if it looks like it's been compromised, it's probably best to go inside and pay for your gas that way. So those are some of the common ways that we're seeing it, but there's so many ways that our identity is being stolen.
Well, and minimizing the risks, really one of the most important parts of this program. And you've mentioned some things already, Officer Nelson. Thank you for that. Officer Elkins, what would you say in terms of just that overall, what could we be doing better or differently to help protect ourselves?
I think I would say awareness. Be aware of where you're putting your purse at. So if you're going to the grocery store, be aware. If you put your purse on on your cart, just don't turn your back and be looking at stuff, because someone can walk by. And so awareness and making sure that what you're doing is, your credit card. Like Officer Nelson said, when you're getting gas, make sure that that's not loose, and so there's no skimming device on there. When I go and get gas, I always check it just to make sure that tape is still there, or if it's loose, then I will go inside and pay for my gas that way. So my biggest thing is awareness of everything around you, and just make sure you're looking at stuff. And I know that when I go places, if I put my purse down, I need to make sure that I'm watching it. And also, if you're throwing away your trash, make sure that your personal information is not in the trash. Just be aware of what you're putting in the trash also.
Yeah, and I wanted to address that because you see dumpster diving, right? And people just, we kind of live in that day and age where you just toss something and you don't really think about the information that is on there. So, Lieutenant, when we're going to toss a piece of paper, when do we really need to stop and remind ourselves, I should shred that? When in doubt, shred it. So what type of information don't we want out there for others to be able to get?
Well, obviously, any bank records, anything like that, anything with your, I would say, your checkbook, your check carbons, anything that would have bank account information like that, because not only does it have sensitive bank information, it has your name and address, potentially a phone number, depending on what people choose to put on their checks. So anything, name, address, financial information, better safe than sorry, shred it, destroy it so it doesn't, can't get out there. I don't have a good shredder at home, but I regularly, anything that has my name on it before it goes in the trash, even if it's something completely harmless, it's getting torn up before it goes in the trash. So it's better to be safe, can never be too safe.
Yeah, and make sure you're helping your loved ones too, and reminding them, especially your parents and grandparents, because people can be still so trusting, and it's very important that we are kind of watching out for them to make sure that whatever they are tossing, A, that they're aware of what they're tossing, but B, that it doesn't have the necessary information to have somebody steal that. Shred days. I like that we seem to be having more and more of those. Have any of you had direct contact with a shred day in terms of letting folks know that they can literally bring bags and boxes of stuff and it's going to be taken care of? Officer Elkins?
We get people that ask us that, and we'll find out when the shred days are and kind of tell them, where to go. A lot of banks do the shredding. There are a lot of banks that will shred your personal information. So there are still other places that also do shredding. It's just having to pick up that phone and call and ask, will you shred this? Can I bring some stuff over? Can you shred it for me? And even ask friends if they have a shredder that you can shred, have a box and put all your stuff in there that you want to shred, and then maybe at the end of the month, just go and shred it all.
Okay, all right. And I want to go back now to what people should do if they realize they've been taken. I call them the oh crap moments, when you finally accepted that you're not going to find that credit card or that bank statement or whatever the case may be. We have a graphic that we want to put up for our viewers, Lieutenant. I'd like to have you walk us through, and these aren't in any particular order, correct? These are things that you need to make sure that you're doing if you find out that you are missing something important.
Well, and especially if you believe that you are a victim of identity theft, the big thing would be to report this to the Federal Trade Commission if you believe you're a victim, because the sooner the better. That is a very easy process. It can be done online at www.identitytheft.gov. Very quick process. After that, I would contact your local law enforcement, whatever jurisdiction you happen to live in, to get a police report taken. The purpose of the police report is documentation that this occurred. The chances that someone who stole any particular person's identity being local, with all the online fraud that's going on, it's possible that it's a local case, but it's very possible this could be an overseas case. So the reporting of the documentation, the reporting of it to get it documented, is for your protection. Due to the logistics of, this could be someone in, another continent. This may not, unfortunately, get anywhere that is going to get investigated. So understand that the police report is for protection and for your documentation purposes. Next thing, I don't believe it's listed on there. If you believe your Social Security number has been compromised, for obvious reasons, regards to payroll, regards to getting in trouble with the IRS on taxes that didn't get paid, you're down the road, you need to contact the Internal Revenue Service just to make sure that you're covered with that. The next thing would be notify your all three credit report agencies. If you file a report with one, they're supposed to share with all. You can, it still wouldn't hurt to contact all of them, but you can get a report listed on there as to the fact that you are potentially an identity theft victim, or you were an identity theft victim, and that would get on your record, so potential creditors, when they run your name, they would see that, and for your protection again. And there's also the possibility you can get, I believe, a free credit report once a year, and that's always a good thing to go through and do. Set a date, set it on your birthday, set it on New Year's, somewhere that you'll remember. I would suggest birthday. that'd be the time, when you're an adult, to check your credit history and just make sure you don't see anything unusual. If there's an account or something in a city you haven't visited, don't have relatives, that'd be a clue that there's a potential problem there that you need to address.
Okay, thank you. Officer Nelson, second, fraud. Signs of fraud.
So fraud and identity theft are kind of interchangeable. They kind of mean the same thing. They have the same kind of signs. But one of the biggest things I like to tell people about frauds and scams and identity theft is, if you see something that is too good to be true, it probably isn't true. I mean, a lot of times people get the calls of, oh, you've won a free trip to Hawaii, and you want that to be true, because who doesn't want to go to Hawaii? But if you haven't registered for a trip to Hawaii, why would you think that you're going to win one? So those are kind of red flags. Another red flag is if someone calls and they sense urgency. So they want you to act on it right now. They give you 10 minutes, they give you an hour, and they say, if you don't act on this deal right now, it's not going to be available any longer. That's a red flag. Scare tactics. If someone is calling and using threatening language or scare tactics, they may say, I know where you live. If you don't act on this, I'm going to hurt you, or I know where you live. So they're going to use those kind of scare tactics. As our lieutenant said, most of these scams are occurring out of the United States. So is that something that we want people to be worried about if someone uses scare tactics? Absolutely. If they ever fear that they are truly in danger, they need to call 911. But I want most people to know that those are usually scare tactics that scammers and fraudsters use to kind of get you to act on something quickly.
Okay. Officer Elkins, I need to ask this. Who are these people? I mean, when you really stop to think, this stuff is on the rise, it's everywhere, it's hitting us at just about every single angle, whether it's logging onto a computer, getting onto our phone, going through statements, whatever the case may be. Are you finding that there's a common thread in terms of the people who are committing these crimes? Something we could be especially aware of? I don't know. They're pretty good at what they do, obviously.
I mean, they're pretty smart. Some of these people are pretty smart. I don't think there's really a common thread, because it's just anybody could be doing it. It's just someone who knows how to, do what they're doing. And, sometimes people are good with computers. Just sometimes they're smart, sometimes, they're not. So it's really, we don't have a common thread. Anybody, females could be doing it, males could be doing it. So it's just all over the place.
Wow, and all age groups?
All age groups.
I'll be darned. Okay, so we referenced it or made note of it. People who call you, phone scams.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and put up this graphic for our viewers while we're talking about phone scams. You talk about coming at you from many different directions. This is such a great example, and the people making those calls are really, really good at what they do. So Officer Nelson, talk to us a little bit about phone scams.
Okay. All right, so some of the common ones that we're seeing are the health insurance and Medicare. Medicare, in the last year, they've had to switch over Social Security numbers to numbers, so we've seen an increase in that. The grandparent scam, and I'll talk more about that later. Robocalls, IRS scams, we'll see some of that coming up here in April. Enforcement scams, tech and computer support scams. Charity fraud, we see that when there's a natural disaster, we see a lot of that going on. And then our traditional lottery and sweepstakes. But the major ones that I pull from there are the health and Medicare scams, because most of our scammer population, they're targeting seniors. And so, like I said earlier, in the last year, Medicare has rolled out new Medicare cards, and they used to be previously our Social Security numbers, which I don't understand why they ever went and did that, because if your wallet was stolen, then that is the source of a confidential piece of information, was Social Security numbers. So Medicare has changed that now, where they have another digit instead of your Social Security number. But what that created was scammers taking advantage of that and calling seniors and telling them that our new cards are being rolled out, but in order for me to verify that, I either need prepayment, maybe a $10 fee, or I need you to verify your Social Security number. Well, a lot of times these elderly and seniors were giving that information out, and they were willingly giving out their Social Security numbers, and these scammers did not know it, but now they've given out that information, and now that's used against them.
Okay.
So, but now that those are all done, the Medicare card, they've been all rolled out. Now we're kind of seeing it being switched to grandparent scams. And that one is a popular one where someone will call on the phone, and they will, it's mostly seniors that they're targeting, and they will pretend to be a grandchild or someone close to them, and they will use a sense of urgency again. Maybe they'll say, I'm in jail, and maybe I went to spring break in Mexico and I'm in jail and I need you to wire money over for me to get out of jail. And unfortunately, people are falling for them. And again, it's because they're using scare tactics, they're using urgency. But I advise people with the grandparent scams to hang up the phone, take some time to think about it, and call your grandchildren to make sure that they're okay. So don't act on these scam phone calls, and that's what these scammers want us to do. They want us to act fast. And a lot of times the sad part of it, they're pulling this information from Google, they're pulling it from obituaries. So, we list that someone's passed away and they're survived by grandson, granddaughter, and so that is how these scammers are getting that information. So they legitimately know your grandchild's name. And so I think a lot of times the seniors are believing that information because they truly have legitimate information, and so it's very believable. And so we just want to remind people to just stop and think, take a break, hang up the phone, call your family, make sure that person is okay before we act on anything.
Yeah. And Lieutenant, I want you to speak specifically, if you would, to the family members of the older adults. Cognitive decline, obviously a very real issue.
Absolutely.
And even if you didn't factor that in, which we should, there are older adults out there who just want somebody to talk to. And if they can get a caller to take any kind of interest in them, the same would be true with computers and emails and things like that. Talk to family members in terms of what they need to be extra aware of when they're checking in on that loved one, whether it's going to the caller ID and checking to see maybe who's called, how many calls are they getting, how many do they recognize. Speak to that a little bit in terms of those family members checking in from time to time.
That's a very real thing in this state, because the last statistics I saw, the state of Nebraska, I believe, was number 11 in the percentage of its population that's 65 or older. So this is something that's going to hit a large percentage of families in this state. If it doesn't today, it's going to be very soon. The one thing, what I would suggest is have that, and it's going to be an uncomfortable talk with your parents who are, retirement age. It's going to be uncomfortable. A lot of them, they want to maintain their independence. They don't want to feel like they have a problem or that they need assistance. So it's something that you might have to delicately approach it with your senior relatives, your parents, whatever the case may be, grandparents, and explain to them that you're concerned about it yourself and you're taking precautions for yourself. And that would make, I think that makes it a little bit easier of a sell to the senior population if it appears to be a problem for everyone versus this is a problem for you because of your age. Obviously, once you get that point, past that point, then you can start looking into the finances. I have come to discover through personal experiences that it's not unusual for some seniors. They've got savings, they've got things all over different places, different accounts at different banks, whatever the case is, because they're looking at, they might find a CD that's just slightly higher. So the one thing I would suggest is you start streamlining those things. Get an understanding of where everything is at, and that way you don't have it at 10, 15 different locations. That will make dealing with it easier. Then it's going to be just a matter of hopefully gaining cooperation and understanding what their finances are, and you always have the unfortunate possibility of having to look into power of attorney if that becomes necessary. But obviously, if you can get it streamlined and then just try to approach it as being helpful with that relative. Okay, what's going on? And checking their statements every month. What checks have cleared, where'd they go? Look at their credit card information, things like that. It's just out of caring, and again, I would approach it more as a this is a concern for everyone, not just targeting you.
Partner with them, yeah, work with it together. We just have about 30 seconds here. Tell us what's coming up for you guys in terms of raising awareness. Scout Day?
Yes,
Yeah.
so I'll speak on that.
Yeah.
So our Scout Day, we have it every year. It's an annual event that we address mostly to scouts, but we encourage families to come too. So this is a time for Crime Prevention Safety Month to talk about crime prevention and safety. We go over fire safety, emergency preparedness, and fingerprinting. So it allows scouts the time to come out and not only learn those items and they acquire badges for doing that, but it also allows them to interact one-on-one with police and fire personnel and see what equipment that we use on a daily basis to make it safe and to make their lives safe.
Okay, very good. We want to put up some websites for viewers who are interested in learning more about all this great information that you have given us today. cityofomaha.org, donotcall.gov, dmachoice.org, bbb.org, ftc.gov. I want to thank all of you for being here and sharing your time, expertise, and stories. Such important information. Best wishes to you moving forward, especially this month. I want to thank the students who are working so hard behind the scenes, and of course our viewers for watching. As we close, Scenes from the Old Market in downtown Omaha is seen through the lens of Matt Kirkle, a junior at UNO. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/consider this. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.